Okay guys, we're going to just go ahead and start things. As I said, welcome to there we go. My camera decided to take a walk on me. Welcome to Passionate Pachyderms. We're glad you're here. Tonight we're going to be talking about pet peeves. And I already shared one of my pet peeves with y'all. It's when people are late, or when I'm late. It makes me crazy. I don't like being late, and which often happens because I'm one of those really anal kind of people where I can't leave the house unless everything is in its place, the dishes are all done, everything's cleaned up, so that when I get home I don't have to rush right around and clean everything up and pick up things. I'm just really weird that way. So that's another one of my pet peeves. Pachy Dad, what are some of your pet peeves?
Well, one of mine is having to wait while you have to clean up the entire house before we can leave and go someplace, which oftentimes means, well, not oftentimes, but sometimes means that we arrive at places late. So that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. Some of the other ones are the way that the mainstream media and media in general has made everything a crisis. It's no longer news, it's breaking news, it's a crisis, it's the end of the world, and that just, it has managed to desensitize everybody.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, for years, I mean, since at least, I guess I probably first noticed it at the beginning of the Obama administration, that it just seemed like everything was crisis. Everything was, that world was going to end, and we all had to be, you know, in our constant fight and flight mode, to a point where it just exhausted people. I think that's kind of one of the things that really helped turn our economy and the whole country just into a downward spiral, that everybody just became exhausted from being in constant crisis mode. Not only were people losing their houses, the price of gas was going sky high, people were worried about their jobs, blah blah blah, and every time we turn on the news, it was one crisis after another. And it seemed like we were no longer at that point getting actual news. We were more getting just commentary from the mainstream media. And I don't think a lot of people really noticed that until just recently. But it was, you know, certainly happening back 9-10 years ago, and has been happening ever since. So I totally agree with you there, where, you know, everything is a crisis. You know, Trump stubs his toe, and oh my God, the world's going to end, and North Korea is going to grab their nukes and bomb us for sure. It's just ridiculous. We've got a couple people in the YouTube stream chat. Kristen, what are some of your pet peeves? Let's see, T Black says, mine is people starting a project and leaving it half finished. My husband is notorious for that, as is his kid. Then they expect me, a 60-year-old disabled mama, to finish up my work and theirs. Well, yeah, that would annoy me too. Unfortunately, I should say fortunately, I don't have one of those kind of guys. Typically, when Chuck starts something, he finishes it, but unfortunately there are a lot of men out there who are guilty of that. I've certainly seen lots of partially done household projects the guy in the house decides he's going to remodel something and starts it and does the demo or part of the demo, and 10 years later it still looks exactly like it did the day the demo happened. And that would drive me crazy. I totally would not be able to deal with that. One of the things that spurred on this pet peeve live stream is Chuck and I we went to Best Buy just the other day. I think it was Thursday or Friday, because I was looking for a new headset. And we came out of Best Buy, got in the car, and pulling out of the parking lot, and this great big truck is in front of us, stops, lets a woman out. She runs into Pier 1 Imports, and the guy sits in the driving lane in the parking lot with the truck running, holding up traffic behind him. And we're expecting him, okay, he let her out, he'll drive around the parking lot or whatever until she comes back out. But no, he just sat there blocking traffic, knowing full well there were people behind him. And Chuck tried to go around him, and as soon as Chuck tried to go around him, the guy moved forward about 6 feet, like he was trying to block us or something. And then he stops so that we can get by him. And as we're driving by him, he looks at us like we were the ones doing something wrong. I mean, he's the one standing there in the driving lane with his truck running, waiting for whomever to come out of the store. That just burned my butt, and Chuck's too. It's like, and then he hauls off and gives us a dirty look. It's like, at that point, you can kind of understand the whole road rage thing, when people do stuff like that. T Black says he means well. He's a truck driver, so not much time home, and treats me like a queen, but that's his downfall. Well, we all have our idiosyncrasies. Even me, Pachy Mom, I have lots of them. And Chuck, let me tell you all, he is a saint for putting up with them, because I am not an easy person to live with. I'm super anal about everything being in its place. I have really severe ADHD, so I tend to speak in a different language than the rest of the world, especially when I haven't had my meds yet. So he puts up with an awful lot. So I can understand everybody having a downfall. Michelle, the music is still too loud. Okay, I'll turn. I had asked about that earlier, and they said that it was okay, but I will turn it down a little bit more. Actually, what I'll do is I'll just turn it off. There, how's that? Hopefully that'll solve the problem.
Good evening.
Hello, Pyro. Welcome. Glad you could join us.
Me too. I broke about 15 traffic laws on the way here, but I'm here.
Did you get caught?
Nope.
Then it doesn't count.
I'll bet Pyro doesn't have any pet peeves at all.
No, and you're probably going to hurt yourself laughing. My pet peeve is being late.
No comment.
Right? I get to work a half hour early every day, so I have time to sit there in the car and decompress and then get into work and everything and get all set up for the day. So I seriously hate being late. So guess what I am tonight?
Well, it happens to the best of us. Is the music better for those of you listening on YouTube? I turned it off. Can you hear us better now? No comment. Okay, Pyro, do you have any other pet peeves other than being late?
Yes, idiots in man buns on the interstate trying to run my car off the road.
Right? What's with the man bun thing?
I truly believe that a man bun is so that you can, it's a handle for when you give your wife's boyfriend a blowjob.
When you get, oh, well, I guess that could be. Yeah. That's,
Thank you, Reddit.
it is not an attractive look for men, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. And all it reminds me of is like a knot on their head for a handle for something.
And honestly, if a guy has long hair and doesn't want it hanging in his face and stuff, then he needs to get a haircut. I mean, you know, buns are for women, not for men. I'm sorry, I know that sounds sexist. For you guys probably don't know me that way, but I am a little bit sexist. I am. I'm not a feminist at all.
Me either.
Which brings us to another thing that's a pet peeve is these feminists who think, who, want their little boys to play with dolls and dress up in dresses and all this other stuff because they want them to be sensitive. And then, chat disconnected. Please wait while we try to reconnect. Sorry, you guys. It looks like I lost you and I didn't even know it. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, where was I going? I completely lost my train of thought there.
You were talking about feminists and little boys.
Oh, yeah. I mean, encouraging their little boys not to play with guns, not to play G.I. Joe, not to play with fire engines and dump trucks, but instead to play with dolls and doll buggies and baby bottles and stuff like that. And then the same women who are doing that, they turn around and whine and complain to their friends because they can't find any real men out there to date. Well, how in the world do they expect to find real men, or they expect their daughters to find real men, if all they're raising up are a bunch of pussies? I'm sorry, that's just my opinion.
I wish to let you know Jessica just fell out of her chair laughing.
Well, it's true. I mean, we've become this society where we're turning our little boys into little girls because we want them to be more sensitive, and we're telling our little girls that they have to toughen up and be a man, and then we're upset because nobody seems to know what their gender role is. I mean, little girls don't know how to be women, and little boys don't know how to grow up to be men. And everybody stands around with their fingers up their butt wondering why.
Good point.
Some of the other things I mentioned on the ad are somebody in the room today mentioned the Walmart self-checkouts. Those used to be a pet peeve of mine, but I've kind of gotten a little more used to them, and I'm not quite as opposed to them as I once was. But it seems like probably 7 out of 10 times when I try and use those things, I end up having to stand there while one of the employees comes and fixes whatever it is I did wrong. And I don't know about you guys, if where you live they have the same thing, but at Walmart and at Kroger, we have Kroger grocery stores around here, the automated teller says, please put your item in the cart. Well, it gives you about a second and a half to do that. You're trying to scan your stuff and put it in the bag and all that stuff, and this stupid recording is going, please put your items in the cart. Please put your items in the cart. It's like you just want to shout back at it and go, shut the hell up, bitch.
Actually, it wants you to put it in the bagging area. So if you have something larger and you put it in the cart, then it wants you to put it back in the bagging area.
Right, that's what I meant, in the bagging area. My bad.
I don't like those because I prefer to deal with a real person when it comes to my money.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of people who really don't like those things, but they seem to be becoming more and more popular.
Well, I know they've been around for a long time, but I still don't like them, and I'm not willing to put a member of the human race along with me out of a job.
Right? I mean, although it does help with Walmart having 27 registers and only 3 people checking people out.
Wait, where do you live that you're getting a total of 3 people checking people out?
Oh, do you only get 2?
Sometimes.
Well, we are closer to Washington.
But see, that's why people like me appreciate the self-checkout, because I don't want to get behind the lady that is looking for the 23 cents in her purse that takes 5 minutes to find, and then she gives it to the person, and then they start talking about how their day went, or who they saw at church, or the fact that it's raining outside. Meanwhile, I'm waiting with my ice cream, which is melting, trying to get home.
There is that. And oh, on the same theme as trying to get home, people who get in the left-hand lane on the highway and go 45 miles an hour. Oh my God, there is nothing that drives me more crazy than that.
Tomorrow, in my state, that becomes a ticketable offense.
That should be a ticketable offense in every state.
I was thinking something a little stronger, but we do try to be a family show somewhat.
We do? I thought that's why we were doing this after 9.
Well, some of my family's watching it.
Yeah, but well, never mind.
Well, Pyro, maybe you could take it out of the context of protecting yourself and your property, and that person's in the way and could possibly damage your property. So maybe you could use your gun on that person after all.
With the right defense attorney, I could see that happening.
Oh, speaking of defense attorneys, I have this theory. I don't know where you all live, but we came originally from Wisconsin, and Wisconsin has these humongous deer and a huge deer population. I mean, we do here in Virginia too, but I think the deer are much bigger up in Wisconsin. Well, people were and are they these deer run right out in front of the cars, and you hit them and it'll total your car in no time flat. My contention is that if people have to have a state hunting license to hunt the state's deer population or any other uh, animal for that matter, I'm just using deer because they're a big animal, and their deer are not kept under control. Now, keep in mind, if we don't keep our dogs or our pets under control and they do damage to someone else's property, we are financially responsible for the damage that they do, right?
Yes.
So, my contention is if the deer belong to the state, which clearly they do because the state has to give us permission to hunt them, thereby taking ownership of them. So if the state has ownership of these deer and they fail to keep them under control and their deer jump out in front of my car going 70 miles an hour and total my car, I don't think my insurance should have to pay for it. I think the state should have to pay for it.
Yeah. I can see the sense in that one. Yeah.
But in essence, it's still us having to pay for it because we are the state. We're the ones who give the state money. So you don't win even then.
Well, first of all, honey, if you're going 70 miles an hour, it must be a school zone for you to be going that slow.
Oh,
Second of all, our pets are domesticated animals and they are wildlife, hence the term wild and out of control.
But the state takes responsibility for them. So if the state's taking responsibility for them, then technically they should be responsible when the deer damage something that belongs to someone else.
hey, just to let you know, I asked for pet peeves out of the chat. We got one so far.
And what's that?
When your neighbors have a crappy yard. And I was like, do you live near me? I know it. I think I know what she means. So, people with 4 cars in their front yard up on blocks and toilets in the front yard and things like that.
Oh my God, she must not live in Tennessee because that's like on every road. I mean, you've got these rundown shacks that look like somebody abandoned, but there's a whole family living there, like you said, with, 10 cars collecting rust in the side yard and the lawn hasn't been mowed in God knows how long. And you go 100 yards down the road and there's a $1 million mansion right next door to it. I mean, it makes no sense, but that's Tennessee.
Yep. Oh, and here we have another one. And by the way, Michelle, I don't think this lady lives next door to you. She says she lives in Texas, and I know you don't live in Texas. Okay, July 4th coming when you live in the city limits. 15,000 people and the fireworks scare the crap out of your pets. Oh, do not come to my neighborhood on July 4th because we all get together and set off fireworks through the entire neighborhood.
I guess I can see both sides of that. I mean, because I have with the Pachy poodles, one of which is sitting right here, this little peanut right here.
I see her.
They they're not so much scared of the fireworks, but as soon as they hear them, they start barking and they don't stop. And that becomes really annoying. So, but on the other hand, fireworks are fun for people and they're celebrating and that's the time to do it. So I guess my position would be on that, you know, how about just having respect for your neighbors? If the fireworks start at 9 o'clock, how about making a rule that they have to end by 11? I mean, you got 2 hours, have at it, have a great time. Anybody who has pets whose pets are afraid of them, well, put your pet in the car and go someplace else for a couple hours. I think that would be fair. Um, I have to side on the people who get annoyed with the fireworks, especially when we were in Wisconsin. We lived in real close proximity to our neighbors, and we had one on either side that would continue with the fireworks till 3 or 4 in the morning, and it was just insane. It was ridiculous, and every year they would get just trashed off their butts and be firing off these fireworks and dogs barking and neighbors complaining, the police getting called. So, I mean, I see both sides of it.
Yeah, for us, it was always, getting together with the neighbors, and we were sharing fireworks, taking time, taking turns setting them off. And then, of course, you always had the people with the mortars. And if you're in the right neighborhood, you can actually see the aerial fireworks displays from the surrounding cities, which was really cool. And heck yeah, it's noisy on July 4th.
Absolutely, but it's supposed to be. It's one day a year.
Right? Okay, got another one here for you, and I'm sure Pachy agrees with this one. People who don't use their blinkers.
I'm kind of guilty of that.
Uh-oh, there you go, Michelle.
Not all the time, but sometimes I am.
I used to do it in Vegas, but then again, I was just driving like the locals.
Yeah, and usually if I'm not using my blinker, it's because everybody else is so far behind me, I don't really need to because I have a very, very heavy foot.
Saying if we were in the same state, I would be drag racing you on the interstate. I know it.
Well, that might be fun. So, how about some phrases? Does anybody have any phrases that are that just kind of burn them? Mine are at the when the mainstream media uses at the end of the day, or when the rubber meets the road. Every time I hear one of these people come up with one of these stupid ass phrases, and everybody jumps on the bandwagon and starts using it, and before you know it, by the end of the week, you've heard it several hundred times out of all of the media personnel. When the rubber meets the road, at the end of the day, it's like you just want to throw something at the TV by the time they're done.
When all is said and done,
Exactly. And Maxine Waters is a huge pet peeve of mine.
oh my God. Yeah, I remember the conversation we had earlier, and I'm still going with the boiling oil.
CNN, we just happened to, I don't even know why. Oh, Chuck was trying out a new Netflix subscription or something, and we didn't choose a program quickly enough, and it defaulted to CNN. And all of a sudden, I'm listening to Maxine Waters live doing her speech, cackling like the hen that she is. And, she's still inciting violence. She's talking about the immigrants and these poor children who are ripped away from their parents. But she doesn't mention the fact that Trump fixed that. And that's not happening anymore. And they are being reunited with their parents. And you got all these libtards behind her, all cheering and making all kinds of noise. And it's like, I see someone like that. I hear what she says and what a blowhard she is. And I just think, and those idiots in her district keep electing her. What does that say about the people in this country who keep electing people like that?
It's not good, I can tell you that. Um, let's see here. Got another one. How about the word bay?
Bay?
You know, you're my bay. That's my bay over there. From what I understand, it's Danish for poop.
Oh, do you mean like speaking in Ebonics?
No, it's actually an internet term. You need to get out on Facebook more, Pachy.
I've never
It's
heard that
supposed.
one.
Really? I think somebody thought it was short for baby.
Maybe. Maybe, baby. I don't know. No, I've never heard that one.
Yeah, we got to get you on Facebook once in a while. I'll do a daily report on Facebook. New slang for Pachy.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. Michelle, you're right. That is why our society's failing.
Yeah, Maxine is something else. Her and a bunch of other people just need to be removed from office by their districts. I don't know why you would vote for somebody who says they have your best interests at heart, but your life's not any better than it was 4 years ago, last time you voted for her.
Right, right. Jess says that one of the things that annoy her is people who use the word like all the time. Oh, I totally agree. We watch a lot of the HDTV shows like International House Finders and House Hunters and the Property Brothers and stuff like that. And every now and then you'll get some California people on there, and the the woman will be like, really? Oh, like I could totally see us in this house, or like I could totally see myself cooking in this kitchen.
When in reality, she's never learned to cook.
Right, exactly. I mean, you've got these women who admit, I never cook, but they want gourmet kitchens. Why?
So they have a bigger fire when they burn the damn thing down.
I guess. Of course, Chuck's sitting over there in his chair probably thinking, if that is not the pot calling the kettle black.
Ooh, you know, he better be careful. He's the one that lives with you.
In all fairness, I did make dinner tonight, but he went to the store for me, so.
Aw, that's sweet.
That's why I didn't say anything, because I knew that would be the first thing she brought up. I guess one of my pet peeves too is, you watch on TV and you see some of this stuff, but what really irritates me too is if you talk to somebody and they end everything with a question and they raise their voice at the end so that you don't know if they're making a statement or are they asking a question.
Oh, good one.
Yeah, that is a good one. Another pet peeve of mine is liberals, just in general. Liberals just piss me off.
It's more their attitudes. I know very few that are actually civil human beings, but not too many. Thank God for living in a red state.
Well, hopefully more and more of us will be living in red state as time goes on.
Yep. Let's see. Yep, we are teaching our kids to be more sensitive but not responsible for their actions. Yes, and the schools are encouraging that.
Oh, right. What about the parents who get called by the school because little Johnny kicked somebody in the face or something equally as vile, and little Johnny's parents come and say, "Oh, it couldn't have been my Johnny. He couldn't possibly have done anything like that. He's such a sweet boy." No, no, it had to be the other child's fault.
Right? The one time I got called to the school for one of my children getting into a fight, the child shall remain nameless, but this particular child beat up the son of the police chief in a very small town in Arizona. She whipped the snot out of the mouthy little punk, because he is. Oh, she just outed herself. And they called me in to talk about it and going, oh, we're concerned about this. And I said, he's been picking on her the entire school year. You didn't stop him. He deserved his butt being kicked. Anything else?
Right? And what about the ones who, or the school administrators who say, well, yes, these 5 girls have been mercilessly bullying your daughter for months and months, and we've seen it, and we've shaken our fingers at them and told them to knock it off. But, the thing is just by your daughter existing, she plays a role in this too.
That sounds like an insurance company excuse. Oh, you were there when the accident happened, so you're not getting paid as much as you should.
Yep. I mean, talk about the coward's way out. Oh, we don't want to piss these kids' parents off by and actually do our jobs and punish these kids and give them a consequence for their actions for bullying somebody else. But at the same time, we don't want to absolve the victim of any responsibility.
Right.
American Woman, that's why we're here, is for everybody to start rambling about anything they want. That's what this whole stream is about. Pet peeves. Let it out.
Yep, that's why we are here.
One of my pet peeves involves the way the weather is being reported lately. It seems like for example, if there is a hurricane that could possibly be coming, they're already talking about it and building it up like 2 weeks before the hurricane even gets to the United States. They've got everybody whipped up into this fever that, the world is going to end because of this hurricane. Or if you live in the northern states, they don't have snowfalls anymore. Everything is a snowstorm. You don't have snowfalls, you have snowstorms. And the storm desks all get ready on the TV, and the radio's got their storm reporters out. 2 inches of snow, 4 inches of snow, 6 inches of snow, Wisconsin. That's a snowfall. That's not a snowstorm. A snowstorm is 18 inches of snow, 30-mile-an-hour winds, and it's 10 degrees.
Right? Exactly. Here in Virginia, I'm not kidding you guys. Here in Virginia, if they get 2 inches of snow, they close the schools for 3 days.
Right?
And they close the schools even before it starts snowing. In Tennessee, it's even worse. We had 4 inches of snow and a little bit of ice before the snow when we lived in Tennessee. I am not kidding you. They literally closed the state for 2 weeks. All the schools were closed for 2 weeks. Even the restaurants were closed for 2 weeks.
Yes, and when we had Snowmageddon here 2 winters ago, they didn't close anything down until we had a foot and a half of snow in one day.
Right? That's same thing in Wisconsin. I mean, even a foot and a half in Wisconsin, they wouldn't close anything. Everybody'd still be plowing through it.
Yeah, well, see, for here, the big thing was that they did not have the supplies of sand and road salt and chemical deicer to take care of the roads because they weren't prepared for anything like that because we don't have that kind of snowfall here.
Jess says marijuana being illegal in most states. I gotta agree with you there. I mean, I would not know where to find pot if I wanted it here in Virginia. I wouldn't have the
Oh,
first clue. But I know everybody has it. I know everybody's doing it. And it's absolutely ridiculous to keep this thing illegal. I mean, you're allowing cigarettes to be legal. You're allowing alcohol to be legal. If people want to get high and they want to smoke pot, it's that, if it ruins their life, that's their problem. It's
right?
not the government's job to say whether or not they can or can't do it. If they want to do it, let them do it. I don't really understand the federal government's position on that and why they seem to have dug their heels in and want it to be, you know, illegal across federally illegal, however you say that, a federal offense, whatever. It just shouldn't be. I mean, it shouldn't have been from the beginning. It's a plant. Just the same as if you go out and you drink dandelion tea or um, use, I don't know, alfalfa to to smoke or season something. I mean, none of it's any different. If it grows in the ground, in my book, it isn't going to hurt anybody. I mean, unless you're talking about something like belladonna or something like that, which, you know,
Right.
anybody who does stuff like that, they're just asking for trouble.
Yeah, to me, marijuana is safer than alcohol. And from my personal experience, I never beat anybody up when I was stoned, but I sure did when I was drunk.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have never heard of an instance of domestic violence caused by someone being high on pot. But I'll tell you, there's multiple cases of domestic violence in every city caused by alcohol.
That's good. It's kind of hard to um, get into a fight with somebody when you're too busy giggling or talking about God.
I think if you think back, for those of us that are old enough, 50, 60 years ago, the reason that they banned marijuana is because all the experts at that time were telling them that was a gateway drug to the much harder stuff. And they felt if they banned marijuana, maybe they could stop the progression of drug use towards the harder stuff.
Well, they're still saying it's a gateway drug, which is bullshit. I mean, no drug is a gateway drug. Number one, with addiction, no drug is a gateway drug any more than anything else. Addiction is a gene that people have. You either have the addiction gene or you don't. And if you don't have the addiction gene, you're not going to become addicted. You're not going to go from one drug to another seeking a bigger high unless you have that addiction gene to begin with. And at that point, then you need to go and get help. But if somebody wants to smoke a joint, even if somebody wants to do a line of coke, in my book, those things are not things the government needs to be interfering with. If people want to do destructive things to themselves, then they should just be allowed to do it. It's like survival of the fittest. It's not up to the government to keep us safe from ourselves. If we want to get drunk, get high, whatever, and we're only hurting ourselves, then what business is it of the government's to tell us what we can and can't do?
I agree. The government is great at micromanaging everything in Americans' lives, and the sad part is we have given them the power to do that.
Oh, without question we have. We've just, for decades we've sat by and looked the other way, and every time something went wrong, we've screamed, "There ought to be a law." And then there were the laws. And now, as one of those mainstream media catchphrases, it's a very slippery slope. And it is. I mean, so many times people see something happening and they're like, oh my God, there should be a law about this, blah, blah, blah. But they don't stop and go, wait a minute. If we put a law in place for this, what are the consequences of that law going to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And how will that law be changed? I mean, oftentimes we want laws put in place that make perfect sense, but by the time they get written and by the time they get voted on, those laws are so bastardized that they no longer help the very people they were meant to help. Instead, they're hurting people. So we have to be really careful about things like saying there ought to be a law or pushing for certain laws, and we have to look at how those things can be bastardized by the people in Washington, D.C., the people in our state capitals, and how they will twist those to their advantage and ultimately could end up hurting people rather than helping them. I mean, Obamacare is a prime example. I mean, you had all kinds of people screaming that they didn't have health care. Okay, they put health care in place for these people, and there were 7 million people who didn't have health care who were screaming. But then when they put Obamacare in place, it hurt the other 127 million or 327 million of us. So you got 7 million versus 327 million. To me, I think the 327 million should have been put before those 7 million.
One of my pet peeves is when people are talking about something, let's say curing cancer or finding a cure for some disease or doing something, and they say, well, if we could put a man on the moon, why can't we do this? Well, putting a man on the moon was a physics equation. So all it took was solving a physics equation. That's a whole lot different than trying to find a cure for cancer or a cure for some of these other diseases. But people think that just because we put a man on the moon, we should be able to do anything. The man on the moon was a mechanical thing. All it took was figuring out that equation.
Absolutely. And I'm reading in the room, so the discussion has delved into the um, into drug addiction. And the things that I was saying with regard to pot and when I mentioned cocaine, I'm not talking about children doing this stuff. I'm talking about adults. And I'm not talking about adults who live on cocaine. I'm talking about an adult who every 6 months they go to a party and they decide they want to do a line of cocaine. That's not going to make cocaine a gateway drug for them.
No, not if they don't follow it up with anything.
Right. I mean, if they do it every once in a while, it's not my business. It's not your business. It's not the government's business. Um, if they're doing it every day and they are addicted to it and they are following it up with harder drugs or other things to enhance the feeling that they get from it, yeah, then that's an addiction and that's a problem. But and again, I'm not talking about children. I'm not talking about kids between the ages of 14 and 20 who oftentimes try this stuff because other kids are trying it and they don't realize that they have that addiction gene, and before they know it, they're addicted to it because they didn't realize that there was an addiction gene that ran in their family. I mean, in my family, both my parents were alcoholics. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't drink. My sisters don't drink. None of them are alcoholics, which is kind of bizarre. Um, but maybe it was just one of those situations where we all just made a conscious decision to stop that cycle. And my kids don't have substance abuse problems. My nieces and nephews don't have substance abuse problems. So it's not like it skipped a generation. So I'm just saying that anything an adult does in moderation is up to the adult. It shouldn't be up to the government to determine whether or not I can do it.
Exactly. Let Darwin sort them out.
Exactly. That's kind of how I see it. I mean, I don't mean to sound uncaring or mean when it comes to people who have drug addiction problems, but in this day and age, there are so many opportunities for rehabilitation, for assistance, for detox, everything else. If those people choose not to participate in those programs and choose not to get themselves clean, I don't think I don't think it's my job to be their keeper. And I don't think it's the government's job to be their keeper either. They know what they're doing to themselves. They've seen it. I mean, if they're addicts, they've seen it in their friends, they've seen it in the people they hang out with, they've seen it in the people that they buy their drugs from. And other people who buy drugs from those people. They know what those things do to people, but they choose to do it anyway instead of choosing to get help. So at that point, again, talking about adults, at that point, that becomes their choice and their decision. And I know that a lot of parents have struggled with that concept. You know, it's not quite the same thing, but Chuck and I have a bipolar daughter, and there came a point where we had to practice tough love and just say, no, you have to be responsible for your consequences regardless of your mental illness. And we're not going to allow you to live in our house and behave this way because that's a consequence of your behavior. And we had to kick her out, and she struggled. I mean, she was homeless for a while, and it was very hard to see that. It was very hard not to reach out to her and you know, want to bring her back home and keep her safe and everything. But for our own sanity, for our well-being, we couldn't, because she was making us crazy, and she just had to strike out on her own and live her consequences. And she did. And after a few years, she settled down, and there was no more of that behavior. And I think sometimes in cases where illegal drugs or illegally obtained drugs are involved, it's very, very difficult for parents to be tough and to not be subjected to the manipulation that kids know they can pull on their parents. And we love our kids. We want what's best for them. We want to take care of them. We're worried about them. But once they're adults, we got to let it go.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why I think the timing on that series we were discussing earlier, doing the 2 shows, I think the timing on that is actually beautiful because there's so many people that don't understand that.
Yep, I think you're right. Well, we're getting towards an hour long here. So, does anybody else have any pet peeves they want to share?
No, but it looks like there's a couple people in the chat that I hope enjoy the upcoming shows we're going to do on addiction and recovery.
Yeah, that would be great.
I think they're needed as a public service.
Well, and yeah, I think we can absolutely tie them into the whole desensitization and the crisis. Everything's a crisis mode, all of that stuff.
Oh yeah, that's going to be way easy for me to throw that one together.
Yep. Well, really, really glad you guys joined us tonight. I hope you had a good time, and hope you'll come back and see us again.
Ditto.
This is Pachy Mom for Passionate Pachyderms and Word from the Herd. And until next time, be nice to each other.
And this is Packy Dad saying we've reached the end of the day.
And this is Pyro signing out.